down the road in important playoff games.
Well, clearly that'd be the case. I think most importantly for Chicago in this game, they've been trying to stay healthy all year, get Cartwright back in the lineup. He's very important because he plays Patrick Ewing so well. The other thing for the Knicks, though, they collapsed last year. They lost 5 of their last 8. This year, they want to go out on a high note, get a chance to go for a franchise 60 wins.
All right, well, as you probably know, the Knicks clinched home court advantage in the East with the Bulls' loss at Charlotte on Friday night. What should we expect from the Knicks and the Bulls today at the Garden? For the answer, we turn to Marv Albert and Mike Fratello. Marvelous.
All right, Bob, and following that Bulls loss to Charlotte on Friday night, Phil Jackson had indicated that he might rest his starters for today's game. As it turns out, he has changed his mind about that. Earlier, we asked Phil, what is his approach for today?
We know who we are. We don't have to, support ourselves and prop ourselves up with press or false jargon. We know who we are, what it takes, and the effort. We do need to have to be the New York Knickerbocker team.
Let me translate what Phil Jackson was saying. Yes, Chicago is disappointed. They did not wind up with the best record overall in the Eastern Conference. But this is a very proud defending champion, a team that played very well in the stretch run as they were trying to catch New York for the best record. They have a lot of self-confidence. Phil Jackson feels this team is playing well, and they're saying that if we should meet New York in the conference finals, we can win even without home court.
And the Knicks come in with a record of 59 and 22, so they are gunning for win number 60, which would equal a franchise high. The 69-70 championship Knicks squad went 60 up and 22 down. What does all that mean to the Knicks?
It's a very significant accomplishment to win 60 basketball games. In fact, only 34 times in the history of the NBA has a team won 60 or more basketball games. The Knicks coach, Pat Riley, he was involved at 2 teams as a player that won 60 or more. 5 times when he coached the Lakers, they won 60 or more. So there's a sense of pride here. It's not many times that a team can achieve more than it sets out when it lays its goals out in the beginning of the year. The Knicks team has a chance to do that.
And what is remarkable about this Knicks squad is that they are only 2 years removed from being an under 500 ball club. For more on the Bulls, let's go to Ahmad Rashad.
All right, thanks, Marv. Now, in the frame of mind of the Chicago Bulls, a lot of people thought that after that loss Friday night to Charlotte that they would be down. Well, that's not the case. Most of the players told me that after the game, Phil Jackson came in, and he was very upbeat. He was very proud of the team, the way they persevered throughout the entire season, said that they were ready for the playoffs. Well, in getting ready for the playoffs, one of the things that you'll see is Michael Jordan out early shooting, trying to get warmed up. And today, I would say almost every player on both teams were out trying to get ready for this game. Michael also told me that this was a game to remind people that the NBA crown still rests on their head, even though it may have slipped just a little bit. Bob?
Okay, Ahmad, the Knicks and the Bulls, of course, occupy the top 2 spots in the East. Their playoff opponents were determined last night in 3 very important Eastern Conference games. From our Orlando bureau, we're pleased to report the Rims somehow managed to survive Shaquille O'Neal last night, and it was a big night for Shaq. He led the Magic with 31 points and 18 boards. They beat the Hawks and finished 20 games better than a year ago. After the game, the players headed back to the dressing room to watch the conclusion of the Miami-Indiana contest. If the Heat could upset the Pacers at Market Square, it would help Orlando make the playoffs. Even so, they wind up at 500, 41-41.
I think it was a good year. I don't think no one really expected us, to do this well.
But not quite as well as they would have hoped, as it turned out. Pacers head coach Bob Hill looking on. Terrible night for Reggie Miller and Detlef Schrempf. They were a combined 4 for 24, but Vern Fleming picks up the slack, hitting the jumper there. He had a season-high 28 on Friday, then exceeded that last night, matching his career best with 31. So they beat Miami, and they draw the Knicks in the first round of the playoffs.
You look at the matchups, you got Rick and Patrick, and you got Dale on Oakley and Detlef on Smith, so size-wise and mobility-wise, for the most part, we're right there. So, I'm really looking forward to it.
Both Indiana and Orlando finished at 41-41. Why does Indiana win the tiebreaker? Head-to-head, the teams each won twice. Next tiebreaker is conference record. Each team was 27-29 in the East. The record against the 7 Eastern Conference playoff teams is the next way to break the tie, but incredibly, it's still a dead heat, 13-17 for both. finally, the fourth tiebreaker, point differential in head-to-head games. Indiana won their 2 games by 32, while Orlando won 2 by a combined 27. And so by those 5 points, Indiana is in, Orlando is out. And we know that that is ridiculous. I think most fans will accept head-to-head record as a tiebreaker. And sometimes you got problems if you have multiple ties. And I don't think there's anything wrong with using these arcane tiebreakers if you're just talking about playoff positioning. But if you're talking about one team in and the other team out, this isn't football where you can't schedule a game the next day. Hockey, baseball, basketball, you could just have a one-game playoff. Not only would it be fair, it'd be good for television, there'd be excitement around the league. Orlando and Indiana should be playing a one-game playoff tomorrow or the next day.
And I say they should leave it exactly like it is. I like it that way.
Get out of town.
Because you got to play an extra game. You get somebody hurt. I don't think you should do it. I like the tiebreakers like it is.
What do you mean you get somebody hurt? You could get somebody hurt in any of the 82 games.
Yeah, but once you get yourself through the regular season, you're into the playoffs. You're either there or you're not, and I like the tiebreaker like it is.
By the way, this has nothing to do with the way the tiebreaker's set up. This is just coincidence. But wouldn't the league rather see Orlando with the Shack against Ewing than Indiana against the Knicks?
They might, but they didn't make it.
They might.
But they didn't make it.
Here. David Stern calling. Meanwhile, a
Leave it
big
like it
game
is.
for Charlotte last night at Milwaukee. A win would mean the number 5 spot and a date with Boston. A loss would mean the number 7 spot and therefore a matchup with Chicago. It came down to the final second. Charlotte leading by 3. Milwaukee inbounds to Brad Lohaus. He's got daylight, and he hits the clutch three-pointer with 9.7 seconds remaining. The game is tied at 106. Charlotte with time to answer, and they do. Kendall Gill with the ball. He'll work to the top of the key and then penetrate down the middle, and when he puts this one home, they've got the lead again, 108-106, with 2.9 seconds left. A final chance for Milwaukee. Lee Mayberry will toss up a desperation fling. And the Hornets are looking forward to their first ever playoff appearance.
We just wanted to continue to win through, I think it's, 5 in a row now that we've won at the end of the season, and now we get a chance to go and play in the playoffs. 2 weeks ago, you'd wonder if we were even going to make the playoffs, and we got a chance now to make some noise.
And one other game of note in the league last night, it was in Houston. The Rockets had won 11 in a row. The Mavs had won 10 games all year. Dallas had nothing at stake. The Rockets had plenty on the line. So what happened? Go figure. Rudy Tomjanovich might not have expected a tough game. After all, Dallas had won just 3 of 40 on the road. And Houston did lead by 10 at the half. Kenny Smith hitting here led them for the game with 23. But the Rockets couldn't hold on in the second half. Derek Harper connecting over Smith. Harper had 18 points. And the Mavericks are suddenly a juggernaut, and Gar Hurd gets to play spoiler last night in Houston. A potentially crucial loss for the Rockets. They now have the same record as Seattle, but Seattle has the tiebreaker because they beat Houston 3 of 4 this year. So if they meet in the second round, Seattle, as things stand now, would have home court advantage. Seattle plays at Golden State today. Houston finishes at San Antonio. You know, it's too bad the Mavs missed the playoffs by only 28 games because they've got some momentum going now, winning 2 in a row. Something for you to carry on next year.
Leave it to you.
How are you going to keep this going?
Well, we'll work at it. I'm sure you'll give us some help if we don't figure it out.
Well, let's take a look at the playoff matchups as we head to a commercial, starting with the Eastern Conference. Boston-Charlotte matchup could be a good one. Out west, here's the way things would look. Seattle-Utah is a rematch from last year. The Jazz steamrolled the Sonics on that occasion. It could be different this time around. Up next, our interview with Knicks coach Pat Riley as Showtime continues on the final day of the regular season.
NBA Showtime is brought to you by Napa, because there are no unimportant parts.
Pat Riley won 4 NBA titles in his 9 seasons with the Lakers. He left L.A. 3 years ago, worked here at NBC for a year, and then joined the Knicks for the 91-92 season. I talked with him during the All-Star break in February, and the first topic was the last chapter with the Lakers. Happening. It's only in retrospect. What didn't you fully appreciate about the situation with the Lakers that maybe you should have savored more?
I totally enjoyed that experience while I was going through it. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful run. The thing that I regret most about it is how it ended. I looked at the Laker team in the 80s as a team that was significant, that was unique, that did things that no other team ever did. And one of the great things that we had there was the sense of family and being solid. And what I think a coach or somebody who's part of that kind of team after 10 or 12 years, however long you're there, you want that legacy to go on. And, you know, it ended a little bit bitter, and it ended a little bit toxically. And to me, I regretted the fact that the team would not embrace protecting the 80s. You know, it's like it ended, for whatever reason it ended. We had a great run, we had a great time. Let's preserve that by showing the respect for this organization and for that run and for all the players that played there. And I don't think, for the most part, with how it was chronicled at the end, that it was left that way.
When you say the team, do you mean the management of the team? You mean the players?
I'm just talking about the team. When it comes down to it, it's really 12 players, 3 coaches. You know, it really is. And those are the people that go through it. I mean, management is very, very important, but the ones that are on the floor, that are sweating, that are going through the whole thing, the ups and downs, are the ones that have to preserve that time. And you preserve it by protecting each other, by taking care of each other. And I'm sure 5, 10 years from now, when we look back on that time, nobody's going to remember that last year, but there'll be somebody who remember and will say, well, they fragmented. You know, they couldn't keep it together. And that bothered me more than anything, because I think it was just time for a change more than anything else. And we did. And you had to embrace it and move on with it.
So the change was fine, but what bothered you were guys who fired comments about one another, or about you, or
about me,
whatever?
about one another, and it's still going on, you know, and I think it was too good, and it was too glorious, and it doesn't happen that much, and you have to understand that tolerance in this whole game is as much a part of the game as winning is, and the spirit of understanding, the spirit of unity, and the spirit of acceptance, and you just, once it's over with, and it was good, you let it go, and you move on, and you just remember it for the good times. But I don't know if that's the way society is. I don't know if that's the way people are going to let it happen anymore. But that's what I wanted most out of that thing, and I don't feel like it was that way.
And maybe I shouldn't inject myself into this, and people may question my testimony here because, well, we were colleagues, also friends. I never heard you, forget about publicly, I never heard you privately say one bad thing, even when tempted and baited. One bad thing about anybody who played for you or anybody who surrounded you, and obviously you must have your misgivings about some of them, but you've honored that publicly and privately, and it's others' failure to do that that upsets you, I guess.
It doesn't upset me. You work so hard for so long to remember those moments, and when you have that opportunity, you've got to honor that. It's a sense of honor, and I don't feel anything. I don't feel any resentment. I don't feel anything but wonderful thoughts and memories about that time, because it was the best part of my coaching career. I really don't, and I don't waste my time, and I don't think about, you know, ripping anybody or wanting to rip anybody. I don't have the energy or the time to do that, because I never felt that way. You know, I mean, when you go through the run that we went through, you are going to have emotions, you're going to have anger, you're going to have love and joy, you're going to have all of those wonderful emotions that go through the process of being part of something great. And but that doesn't mean it should end up in anything else other than, hey, that's the way it is, and you got to deal with it and grow from it. And we did.
Okay, and another installment with Pat Riley as we continue on tip-off between the Knicks and Bulls just a few minutes away, and back we go now to more of our conversation with Knicks coach Pat Riley. It's clear to see the job that you've done so far with the Knicks. and by consensus, you're the top coach in the NBA. But suppose you never won another NBA title. How much do you think that would get to you personally, if you never won another one?
I don't think about it. I don't think about that. I think that we're going to. I just, I do. The first time that I sat down and talked to Patrick Ewing, and the first meeting that I had with him, and rightfully so, Patrick, I was now his 7th coach in 6 years or whatever it was, and I'm sure each coach sat him down, and had the same meeting with him, and he said to me, why is this going to be any different? I mean, the man had been through it all, and I had spent the whole summer while I was working for NBC, or most of the summer, running the beach and thinking about the next possibility, and I see it. I have this imagination. I see this image of, whether it's Fifth Avenue or Broadway or wherever they have it, where there's going to be confetti coming down one day, and there's going to be floats. And I think if you have this image in your mind every single day and you can envision it, whether or not it's the blue sky or if it's too idealistic or whatever, I think if you have it somewhere, it will determine your behavior, and it will inspire you, and it will fuel whatever it takes to realize that. And I think if you can get a team on that wavelength, and it's a very simple motivation is belief, then I think it can happen one day.
Everything has a price. Even if it's a price you gladly pay and you think that it's worth it, everything has a price. What's the biggest personal price to pursuing excellence the way you've pursued it and plan to continue to pursue it?
I don't know if there's any one thing, or if there's any one personal price that you pay. I know I love what I'm doing. I know I work very hard at it. I take great pride in it. I do think that if there was one thing that I can't do is to balance the energy and effort and concentration that I put into the game that I would like to put into other aspects of my life. And I have found myself over the last 4 or 5 years becoming more and more insulated, less and less accommodating, because I know there's just enough energy for family, for Knicks, for me. And that everything else now has to really be out there. To me, that is perceived as somebody who is all of a sudden becoming aloof and becoming arrogant and becoming detached. But I think that's the only way you can survive.
Chuck Daly, who I know you respect a lot, is coaching well into his 60s. Can you see yourself doing that?
I think so now.
Really?
I mean, I used to kid Chuck and Jack Ramsey and Bill Fitch and Mata and all the guys who were around for years and years. And I used to kid him about, no way. As a matter of fact, I saw Jack Ramsey at the Spectrum. He was up not too long ago, and he looked at me and he said, "You're going to become a lifer," which was my term for anybody that coached the game over 30 years. But I learned a lot from watching those men and how they handled the game, later on in their careers. And there's almost a sense of peace with them, They've gotten through the wars, I hope I'm getting through all of those wars I think young coaches go through, and they just understand it so much better. There's a peace and tranquility about them that they've seen it all, I think. And so I can see myself, yeah, I could.
You can see yourself doing it another 15, 18,
I don't know.
20 years.
But I right now I can't think of anything else that I would rather do than this.
You'll be a coach next year. What about Riley will you most try to emulate?
It's just pursuit of excellence. It brings about a structure, a feeling. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just the way he approaches the game. It carries over to the team and the entire organization. That's why they're in the position they are in today.
Well, time for Riley's Knicks to take the court against the Bulls. Marv Albert and Mike Fratello have the call from the Garden. And then in the doubleheader game, it's the Nets and the Pistons from the Palace of Auburn Hills. We'll see you at halftime.